Welcome to the Humanist Podcast. I'm your host, Ken Stearns. Join us on a journey where we unravel the intricacies of workplace dynamics. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Humanist Podcast. I'm your host, Ken Stearns, and I'm here in Portland. Where I've landed these are my first real roots in about 24 months that I've gotten off the road and I found a home. And not quite have the apartment yet, but I found a city home and trying to plant my own roots and kind of find my own humanist kind of a way. And the idea behind the podcast is to talk about what is it like to flourish at work and what does that look like. And the reality is that the whole person shows up to the office. And there was the time when we said, leave yourself at the door and bring in your title and your job description and excuse me, and get to work. And really what the reality is that the whole person is coming to the office, and we have to find a way to accept that person and allow them the opportunity to bloom and to flourish, because in that and when that happens, the real winner is the entire organization and everybody around and everybody involved in it, including that person that's allowed to flourish. And I just had a great conversation with our guest, Ashish. We were talking really exactly about that. And we both have, although we didn't get to both stories, Ashish and I share a very similar kind of corporate life experience. And then this beautiful moment now we're in this part, we're in our third chapters. I'm a little bit further along in my third chapter. Ashish is just, he may have 4 chapters in front of him. And Ashish is starting that third chapter and really found his purpose. And it's a great story. And I'm excited to bring it to you. Ashish, welcome to the show.
So nice to be with you, Ken. And, you had me at hello with the word humanist, right? And truly creating cultures of flourishing and workplaces. So thank you. It's such a pleasure to be with you.
Yeah. I love your story, talking to you about, you having the dream job, working at McKinsey, crushing it. But in the end, realizing that you probably had or could have a bigger impact.
Yeah.
If you changed your focus. When did that happen? When did that dawn on you?
Yeah. So, Ken, it's a 2-part story, frankly. The first part of really my awakening, came around 2016. I had been at the firm at that point close to 11 years, coming up to 12 years. I'd already been a partner for about 6 years. And, I had the perfect life externally. And I was doing high impact work. I was, really, I had green lights. I was, my career was skyrocketing in the firm. My family was great. We'd landed in Boulder from Chicago.
Nice.
By the way, we love Portland. We could talk a lot around that. But I was here. We were having a great time. And yet, I was waking up with anxiety every morning. And I didn't know why. There was nothing externally that was wrong, but that was kind of my lived reality, right? And when I asked others, you get the standard 2 pieces of advice: go see a therapist or go take a pill. Yeah, it happens every now and then. You're getting to your 40s. Don't worry about it. Don't think too much about it. It'll pass. It'll pass.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
And I was like, no, I wasn't willing to accept that. I have an MBA from University of Chicago. I'm an engineer. I'm like, I have figured things out, and I'm going to figure this out.
Yes.
I'm going to figure it out. Right.
Yes.
I'm going to crush this thing. I'm going to use my own brain. And I, really dove into these questions of what keeps us in fear, what makes up, why are we anxious? Really, that's what I was researching. And around that time, I actually had the good fortune, they say, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And I had this amazing experience to be part of this leadership program that the firm was offering, led by 2 leaders. One was Amy Fox at Mobius, and the other was Joan, who was a partner at the firm. And it was an amazing experience, right? It was in Portugal. It was one of the oldest monasteries. And for the first time in 18 months, in that week, I got exposed to meditation. Yes, I'm from India, but I had never meditated before that. two white women in Portugal introduced me to meditation. Right? Um,
The irony.
and that was the first time, really, that week that I woke up with no anxiety and was exposed to this whole different side around what makes a human flourish or what gets in the way, really.
Yeah, it's really what gets in the way. Yeah.
What gets in the way? Why do we struggle so much? Why doesn't the outside successes lead to inner joy and satisfaction?
Hmm.
The second was, it was that week where I think there was something about that place that was deeply spiritual, as most spiritual places tend to be, where people have done their inner work. They leave a
Yes.
footprint in a place that allows others to go deeper, right? And I realized in that week, through two epiphanies and some own work that we were doing, that my essence had been relationships. Really, that was the core.
Okay.
That what brought me joy. This holiday spent close to 1275 personalized emails. I'm in touch with almost everybody I've ever worked with.
Wow.
5 years. That's what I love to do. And then the third was, I realized in the room were 30 other people who were all going through a same kind of perfect lives outside, lots of inner hurt
Yes.
and suffering people are covering up. And so that was the first start of the journey, Ken, because to me, those three things came together. And I said, you know what? I am actually going to shift my work from doing large scale transformations where I'm helping companies
Okay.
drive profits, revenue costs, to really learning everything I can around this field of flourishing, because through this, I can help so many others. Right? That
Yes.
was my perfect market test. There are 30 people, highly successful, struggling. I am struggling, and I know this is helping me. So let me make the through line through what I care about and what's
Mm.
needed. And that really was the first part, Ken. And, I changed my practice area at the firm. I started really delving deep into this work. 6 years in as a partner, I changed the work I was doing, right? Which is, again, a big shift away. Most people don't do that. I
You
left my
don't do that.
clients.
Yeah. Oh
I
my
left my
goodness.
clients. I left my practice areas. I started doing a lot of work, leadership, well-being, adaptability. I was really studying this. I've trained to be a coach, and I had more or less redesigned my life in my 5 years at the firm were the best years ever. I was working 36 hours a week. I was traveling one night a week. I was working on topics I loved. I was making an impact out there.
Yeah.
And then COVID hit, Ken.
Yes.
And because of the work that I had been doing, and because of my experience with large scale transformations at scale, I was asked by the leadership team to build our adaptability and resilience offering for the world at the firm. So I was part of
Wow.
that team.
Wow.
And, we really applied those learnings to that model, and we really built something that worked. Right in the midst of COVID, we did an at-scale program affecting 50,000 individuals, 500 leaders, and significantly improved flourishing, well-being, psychological safety. But I also came face to face with a lie that I had been living the last 5 years. And the lie was that stress, anxiety, and burnout are prices people like you and I pay who are insecure overachievers to climb the ladder of success. That if you don't want to do that, right? I'll repeat
Yes.
that. Stress, anxiety, burnout are prices insecure overachievers pay
It's a
to climb,
beautiful. It's a beautiful. It's so true. I mean, that capture that. That's me.
right? That's it. So if you don't want power, if you don't want money, you don't
Yes.
want fame, then this is not your problem.
Yeah.
It is the biggest lie ever, because when we looked at the data around resilience, around stress, what I found was this statement can't be more wrong than ever before. There were more people in not for profits who were burnt out than people in for profits. Teachers and doctors and front were burnt out more than private equity, venture capitalists, consultants. Frontline employees can, like, think about hourly
Oh God.
workers, were burnt
God.
out more than CEOs and senior
I
leadership teams,
100% agree.
right? And so it
100%.
was completely off. And around the same time, I came to this realization through all my own work that I was doing, that if you look at the reason why we have a deepening crisis in every theater in life right now, right? Ecological, economical,
Mm.
political, humanitarian, and they're only deepening, is because as humans, 8 billion of us, are stuck in this environment of fear and
Yeah.
anxiety, and we're making decisions from there, right?
Oh, yeah.
Which only result in self. I solve for me, not for you. I solve for the here and now, not for tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Yeah.
And I just don't, and I don't have the ability to take others' perspective. Like, I'm so locked. I'm in this
Yes.
highly triggered, activated state. And when I realized that, that for me was kind of the final nail in the coffin, where I said, you know what? As amazing as as the firm is, and as amazing as my experience in the firm is, I think it's time to kind of dedicate my life to building offerings that help the 7 billion others that we would never reach as
Yeah.
McKinsey. And that was the birth of Happiness Squad. So we set an aspiration to say, how do we build offerings that help a billion people integrate the science of flourishing into their lives and into their organizations, so that we
Mm,
transform how people live, work, and lead. If
I
we do
love this.
that, right? If we do that, I think we have a shot at reversing some of the issues we're living into.
I really agree. I was just reading. I follow the Heart Institute is one of a is a organization, and they're trying to get this consciousness level of everybody on to this same this where you aren't making decisions in fear, and you aren't making decisions in the here and now, and not and you're never thinking about tomorrow. It's just now. And I think what you said is a powerful. I'm solving for me
Yeah,
because I can't even help you right now. I'm just survival. I'm in survival mode.
that's it. And so, yeah, that's the work that we're doing. And, we're on the individual level, we're using the science of habit formation to help people really start to master their inner worlds.
Mm,
Because through habits, we can rewire our brain away from fear. Our
yes.
brains are neuroplastic.
Yes.
So we can do that. And if we do things that are small, which is what we've integrated, so our rewire program can be created, are literally micro practices that are 5 minutes or less. And we built them that way because you don't have more than 5 minutes a day to do something. We are so busy. And when you're in fear, you can't take on more because you're already doing a lot.
You're already underwater, right? We're
You're
we're just kind of
underwater,
we're surfacing for air, and then you're back underwater.
right? So we said, what if we did this? What if we made things that were 5 minutes or less? Second, what if we made them about not new things, but already changing what you do? So we don't want you to meditate.
Oh,
We want you to start your meeting with one mindful minute. Or we want you to introduce mindfulness into 5 things you do already. You brush your teeth, do the first minute of it mindfully. You eat your
beautiful.
food, have the first minute of your food, really looking at the colors, the flavors, the smells. Be with your food,
I
right? Don't look at
just
a screen and scarf it down. Just spend 1 minute.
be present,
Be
right? Just
present.
just be present in the moment. That beautiful, like you said, look at the food, look at the color, enjoy it, and be thankful you're eating clean food off a nice plate.
Exactly. So this notion of, simple. So that's an example of one. We have 30 of these. So they're all about 5 minutes or less. They're about changing what you're doing. So we integrate this work into what you do rather than new things. And three, we're running these programs as whole teams at companies so that, we create the accountability, inspiration, and support
Mm,
cycle. I say the best nudge. People ask me all the time, how do you digitally nudge people to change, to do things? And I say, you know what? The best nudge is? The best nudge is a human nudge. When I commit to somebody else, my chances of sticking to the new behavior changes. When I
yes.
do this with them, right? So if I tell you, Ken, I'm going to go for a run every day,
Okay.
or I'm going to go for a run once a week, you know, I think
Good
it's a
luck.
higher
Yeah,
chances I'm
you
going to do it,
you should do that, Ashish. Yeah.
right? Higher chances I'm going to do it. But you know what's even higher? If I say, hey, Ken, let's meet once a week in the local park and we'll go for a
Yeah.
run together,
Oh,
I'm
I
going to do it more,
I won't let you down. I
right?
won't go I won't go for me.
That's it.
I will go
And
for
that's
you.
that's what we are doing. So we're literally using the power of the teams. We're using the power of the nudges, which are five
Mm,
minutes, and all about transforming to at scale make reduce the odds that people don't follow through.
yeah.
And by the way, when we have these conversations continuously, the whole human shows up because we all struggle in our own ways, right? We shift
Yes.
from me to the we. Uh, so I'm really excited about that work because it's really powerful individual work. But what I will
Oh,
tell you
yeah.
is it's only 25% of the solve.
Ah.
It's only 25% of the solve.
And what's the big piece?
So if you look at all the research, and this is the other part of the reason why I decided to leave and really focus in on this, Ken. Most well-being programs, and I will be as bold to say 99% of them,
Hmm.
focus on the individual interventions. Mindfulness, gratitude, let's
Okay.
help you eat better, right?
Yes.
When the data is really clear. So there was a recent report that came out at McKinsey. Oxford published a report 2-3 weeks after that. When you look at the data, only 27% of a person's well-being, flourishing, is based on individual.
It's on myself.
73% is based on the job, the team, and the organization.
Oh, for sure.
73%,
Oh, for sure.
right?
Yes. Now you articulate it like that. Yes.
73% is around those elements. And then when it comes to burnout, individual interventions only account for 3%. 3%, measly 3%. 97% are job, team, and organization.
I mean, for sure, the pressure on burnout comes from the environment, the
Yeah,
ecosystem you're living in.
right? The amount of work, the time
Yeah.
pressures, the work pressures, your colleagues, do you feel psychologically safe? All of those elements. And so that's kind of the second part of the work that I'm really excited about what we're doing is we're taking people leaders on a journey to teach them the core skills that allow them to actually drive these interventions at the job, team, organization level that are again backed by science, 20 years of research. We don't teach it in any leadership programs, and really help them not just teach them, but to truly help the leaders implement them in their day-to-day work, right?
So implementation is all the programs that you go through in corporate, all the
Yeah,
training and team building and, away days. Coming back and applying stuff is almost non-existent.
that's it.
It just doesn't happen. I can say how many thousands of hours I've spent hiring, organizing, designing, running, being a participant in,
Yeah,
and it's difficult to get that back. And I think it's because people don't see the value often. They get lost in the other stuff. So, but if it's about if I know I can affect my team's flourishing, the mental health right at work and cover that 70, it's a different animal. I'm way, way more inclined.
it's completely different. So, I'm using the classic look. I learned everything that I did, in terms of organizational transformations from McKinsey. It's the change is at the heart of the work that we did at the firm.
Yes. Yeah.
And so that's the model we're doing here. So let me give you 4 parts of the influence model that we use at the firm that we've integrated into our work.
Okay.
If you
Sounds great.
want somebody to change, you need 4 things. One, you need a reason why. They need to understand, going back to your point about why am I going to do it?
Yeah.
So we use the science of what we know that when organizations flourish, they have 2x higher stock market returns, 20% more profitability, 12 to 30% more productivity, 3x more creativity, and 65% employee turnover. Right? We show the studies from Oxford that show return on
Yeah.
assets, profitability, all go up with work well-being. I show the work from Alex Edmonds, who proved causation between employee satisfaction and shareholder returns. So we lead with the why. Here's the why, right? We really ground it in the possibility. Second, capabilities. So we help build capabilities around this. 3, we use data, Ken. A brilliant concepts in the field of well-being. We use data. I say, think about, you ran Asia for AXA. Think about any part of your business which you didn't run by using data that you measured continuously, whether it was marketing, policies, segments,
Yeah.
If you run manufacturing, how often do you collect data on your physical assets? Almost every second,
Uh,
every minute,
yeah,
every
I would
hour,
imagine it's
right?
dynamic, right? Yeah.
You collect data, you benchmark it, and you actually build capabilities in your team to use that data to come up with interventions that help you improve,
Hmm.
right? Today, we spend more on people assets than physical assets. Where's your data on the quality of your people assets,
This is such a killer statement.
right? Where is it?
It, well, I have I have some thoughts, but I shan't share them.
Right? And so we have built an approach, we've built an index, we've built a mechanism by which we can literally measure at the individual team level what is the potential at which they're operating and what levers will help them increase the equivalent of an OEE for a physical
Okay.
asset.
Yes.
Right? So we use data. We use data to guide the interventions. And then the third thing, which is the most important thing, Ken, right? This is like, we talked about there are four parts. It's you need to know the why, you need the capabilities, you
Yep.
need the data and
Data.
incentives to make sure that we are measuring data and we're really holding people accountable by integrating their reward processes into it. But then the last part,
Mm.
which is role modeling. If you want your people to flourish and for them to do that with their people, you have to role model it. You have to show up differently as a leader. You have to ask different questions. You have to engage in different behaviors.
Mm.
If we do those four, then all of those things become positive because you know that human potential, human centric organizations, the humanists, people
Yes.
forget that that is at the heart of the flywheel. If we do that right, every other strategy we
I,
need those people to implement and it'll make it so much easier.
we've all been we've all been on teams that have been flourishing,
Yes.
and you remember those so fondly because you could do anything. You could achieve anything that came your way. You could do it, and people felt great. The energy was palpable in the
Yeah.
team.
Yeah, I mean, we do so many things out there, right? And so that's what I get really, really jazzed and excited about is look, we know how to do this. We do this in revenue. We
Yes.
do this for sales growth. We do this on terms of customer intimacy. We do this in ops transformations. Let's do this for our people assets. Let's do it for our people who work here. Because I promise you, if we do this right, we will achieve things that we haven't even dreamed about.
Yeah. Ashish, let's do a little. I'll do a little pivot. Um,
Yes.
I'm going to pull a card for you. We got so good in it. We got to go so deep into it. I'm going to skip my turn, and I'm going to go straight to you.
Sounds good.
So, just a reminder for everybody: this is you can't see it on obviously on audio, but if you're watching us on either YouTube or LinkedIn, I've got a big jar. It's 444 questions that I borrowed from my podcast called The Jar, where I traveled around the country and I've interviewed about 360 people in about 96 cities, and these are the questions. Oh, and this is an interesting one because we talked a little bit about this, I think, offline. What do you think about therapy, and have you ever been?
What do I think about therapy and have you haven't been? Look, I think therapy is highly, highly effective, right?
Mm,
And I have never been to therapy, but it is highly effective for a particular set of problems that we
yeah.
navigate,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
right? So, for example, why is it effective? Well, if you think about especially certain types of therapy like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT,
Yes. I love it.
right? CBT is about fundamentally reframing our narratives around
Hmm.
situations, things that might have happened, or narratives around things that we are afraid of happening, right? So we either reframe the past or we reframe the future. Why is that so important? The wisdom of that was captured by Anais Nin. We see the world as we are, not as the world is. Our brains are prediction making machines. We know that from neuroscience.
Yeah.
We see and make sense of the stimulus that we are getting based on past patterns, based on past experiences. If
Mm,
those experiences have been traumatic or put us in fear, that's what we will
yeah.
experience. If we are able to fundamentally reframe that narrative through the skilled help of a therapist, we can not just be defined by our past, or I should say, imprisoned by the past,
Yeah.
but we can actually choose to learn from the past, but move forward, to bounce forward.
Mm,
And that's why I think therapy can be really, really powerful. But also, I think it can become a crutch. I was talking with somebody and they said, one of the people who had, I told you, I had my own struggles with anxiety. And somebody said to me, I mean, I love them. I have so much love for them. They're like one of my close friends. And they said, you should see a therapist. They've really helped me. I said, oh, wow, I didn't know you see a therapist. How long have you seen this therapist? And they said,
10,
I've
10
been
years.
seeing it for like 20 years. No, it was 20 years. I've been seeing it for
Wow.
20 years. And I said to him, hey man, I don't think, like, if you've been seeing somebody for 20 years and he hasn't been able to help you, like, maybe you need to try something different else. Right. And I literally said, you know what? And by this time I was, I think I was already learning a lot around some of the different elements. And I said, maybe going back to therapy, at least CBT being one of the ways in which, we reframe. There's so many other types of therapy, so I don't want to put all into the same thing.
Yes. Yeah.
And I said, maybe you don't need to reframe. Maybe you need to heal. Right? Maybe it's not about here. Maybe it's about here.
It's in the body.
Right? Heal the
Yeah.
body, but heal the spirit. Maybe there is
Yeah.
something else.
The
There is
spirit.
something else here. And I said, maybe
Mm,
explore a different modality. Maybe something you were comfortable going to a therapist, but maybe not to a spiritual guru. Find your
mm.
spiritual guru, right? Find your wisdom in the spiritual text, the wisdom tracks that exist. Maybe there is something else. Maybe you need to heal. So that's my long-winded answer to, therapy. And is it helpful? I think yes, absolutely it can be. But I think
Oh,
anything in moderation, right? It can also become a crutch.
it could become a crutch. As you were speaking earlier, I had a question come to my mind, and it's something I've struggled with in my work. CEOs, the people who are your target, you're talking to CEOs ultimately.
Yeah.
You've got to get them on board. And as you mentioned, the modeling has got to be a key component to the success. You can have the first three, but if you don't have the modeling, it's going to be an uphill battle or it won't work. How do you find, as you look for clients and you get in front of them, and how do you break that through that thick fog of, I've got quarterly results to do. Yes, Ashish, all this sounds great. I want my people to flourish and I want the organization to change. But, but, and
Yeah.
how do you get past, how are you finding, what's the reception and what's the perception? And are we there yet culturally, or is there still an uphill battle?
So I think, look, I had this conversation yesterday with somebody I admire deeply. His name is Bob Quinn. He's in his 70s. He's one of the preeminent researchers around the field of flourishing. He's at Michigan Ross. He just retired from there. He's one of the world's leading expert on change. Okay. And we were having a conversation together. And he asked me, and I said, he started his life as a missionary, by the way. Right? He started his life as a missionary.
I love it.
And I said to him, I said, Bob, I see my job as a missionary.
It's missionary work.
Right? I am entering this phase of my life knowing that 1 out of 10 conversations, am I going to find a leader who's willing to do this work?
Okay.
Right? Out of the 9, 4 of them are in complete denial. They think this is all bullshit. They're living their first part of the life of like, I need to push harder. And that's the only way. That's okay.
Yeah.
God bless them. I still meet them with complete compassion. I
Mhm.
think there are the other 4 to 6 who are kind of more in their head and they say, I get it. Right?
Yes.
I get it. The current ways are not working for me.
They
They're
feel it.
not working. They
Yeah, they
feel
know
it.
it.
They
They
feel
know
it.
it. Yeah,
They
they
said,
feel it.
it's not working for me. I get it. This is different. This is unique. It's not something been done before. I can relate to this because this is how I run the rest of my business. But I think I'm going to still keep doing the way I'm doing it. Right. Or they'll say, let's just do something really small and see if it works. But let's
Okay.
not do the core. Let's not change the core because,
Yeah.
man, I'm going to get fired if I don't meet my number.
This is a real, it's a real thing.
It's a real thing.
They're under
Absolutely.
tremendous pressure themselves.
Absolutely. Right. And when you are in this place of fear, coming up and spending most
And
of your time,
and they're working in fear, right? Because they're worried if they
it's
don't,
not
then
possible.
something happens.
So again, you meet them with compassion and you say, okay, let's figure out where you are and what might be something that you yourself start to experience. Let's start a small thing. Let's figure it out. Let's start a pilot. Let's do a workshop. Let's do something. At least you're starting to engage. This is my point, right? I promise you, if I can say this with 100% guarantee, 90% of the people who are going to do a 10-day meditation at Vipassana, I've done it, are going to come back transformed. I'm willing to bet money on it. Most people are not in a place to go do 10 days of silent meditation. No. But you know what? Almost 100% of them are open to starting one meeting every week, one meeting a day for a week with one mindful moment at the beginning of the meeting. There is no weird chanting. There is no ohms. None of that is needed. I say just start your meeting with this prompt. Ask people to take a minute to mentally arrive where their physical bodies are. Let's just take 6 breaths together. Breathing in and breathing out. Just 6 breaths. And just noticing and really arriving here with each other in this room. That's it. Are you willing to try that? Most people are like, yes. And I say, you know what? I'll give you the immediate benefit from it, because even that, why will you do if you don't get a benefit? And I say, let's ground it in your experience. How often are you coming into a meeting from a prior meeting? Most of the time. Most of the time, right?
Most of the time, or from an email that you had to write, or you are not in that. Your body, like you said, your body and your mind are in two separate places.
Two separate places. So I said, and how often in that meeting, for the first 5 to 10 minutes, you're still processing the old thing?
Yes.
Right? So if you just create that 1 minute break where we get here, I bet you get 15%, 20% of your meeting time back. Because everybody is attentive from the first minute. Right? And second, we know from the science around stress and neuroscience that 1 minute of just breathing and sensing is allowing your parasympathetic nervous system to come online and really compensate back for that sympathetic fight, flight, freeze. So you are not only getting more present, you are calming your nervous system. And so where your reactivity to something negative or what you need to address is going to be lower. So I'm like, go do that.
It's a pretty easy hack.
It's a pretty easy hack. And there are many like these, right? So that's what I get excited about. I'm saying for the middle of them, I'm like, let's start with what you're open to. I'm going to suggest a bunch of things. Just go try them. Let's go try them in whatever space. You want to take a team, which is kind of the 1% of your total profit impact, and hence it won't matter. Give me that team, right? Like, let's work with them. Let's show you how quickly these things work. And then for the one, out of the 10 who says I'm in, I'm like, let's go all in, right? I want to work with 3 to 5 of those companies every year where we can really go deep and to be able to make those be lighthouses every year, right? If I can create 3 lighthouses, those 3 lighthouses where people can come and see the different experiences for difference. It's no different than how we did lean. It's no different than how we did digital lighthouses. 3 to 5 every year, let's build them. 5 will go to 10, will go to 20, will go to 50, will go to 100, and we'll collectively move there. We just need to have patience. We need to have perseverance. And we just need to walk with conviction like the missionaries, because we know this is the work that we need to do as humans to heal each other.
You become evangelists now, right? Like you said, a missionary. I like the evangelist almost in a way, Let's try another jar question. It'll take us off into another angle altogether.
I am sure.
Okay, let's see. Reaching back into the jar, pull another question out for Ashish, CEO of Happiness Squad, one of my favorite company names ever. Okay, Ashish. So I got another one here. Oh, okay. This is a great one for you. Do you agree that the battle for hope only takes place in the battlefield of our minds?
Such a beautiful question. Such a beautiful question. You should repeat that question.
Yeah, yeah. Let me repeat it for you. Whoops. It's. Do you agree that the battle for hope only happens in our mind?
Yeah.
Didn't quite get the right. I threw it back already.
No, that's okay, but that's it. Yeah.
That's it. That's the.
That is the essence of the question, right? Is the battle for hope. So I think there are two or three things to talk about. First, I think it's a very relevant question for our time,
Yeah,
because if you look at
it's really great, right?
all the research that we have out there, right? This is the most prosperous generation that has ever lived. We are more prosperous than any other generation. Less than 10% of the world is in poverty.
It's
The
amazing.
number was
We live right now.
50%, right? That number was 50% not that long ago.
Yeah.
We are finding most of the external things that killed us have ceased to exist,
Yeah.
right? We are living longer, almost twice as longer, right? Our
Yeah.
life expectancy is doubled. Most babies born today are expected to live into their 90s. We are more connected than ever before, right? We can learn.
Hmm.
We have the whole world available to us. We can do most things at 10% of the time it took us even 20 years ago, Ken.
Oh, God.
I started my career. You were probably even way earlier, right? Not probably, you were, but like I remember when the internet came out.
Yeah.
My master's thesis was literally on like dot matrix printers, right? We didn't have it was like literally, I mean, it was a text file and then, all of this stuff. So I remember those days,
Oh,
right?
God.
And now we can do everything, whether it's booking a ticket, bank transactions, interacting with people globally. Back then we were talking about chasing the sun with IBM. Like, how can we keep work going, using
Oh,
the time zones?
yeah.
Like, we're at such a fundamentally different level. Now we don't even ask that question. Now we say, how can AI do 90% of the work I need to do so I can do the 10%?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we're at a whole different level. And yet, despite all these advances, we have less meaning, we are more stressed, we are more anxious and more hopeless. More young kids today, right? Recent survey they don't have hope.
I, it's really a frightening. Some of the data on this is really frightening.
Right? Like, there's a complete lack, and it absolutely starts with our head. And you know why? Because there are certain beliefs, unfortunately, that we have picked up in the world that we have created. One, there is too much focus on the self. We are social beings, Ken. We are social beings. Okay? That's number one. Individually, a stick is weak. Collectively, it's hard to break a bundle. When you
Yes.
make somebody focused on being the stick, you will be hopeless. You will be hopeless. Second big issue. Second big, right? This is the first. One versus me versus we.
But yeah, and having that family or that culture, the group you come you
Family,
bind
the
with.
community, each
Community. Yeah.
other, right? Really. I mean, communities, any crisis, the government does much later to show up. The community show up,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? The community always shows up. Always shows up, right? They're right there. We just need to wake up and look around and play our part, because they are there. They are there. They're always there. So that's number one, which is we have to shift. Because of that, there is a hopeless, and it starts in our mind. We can say it's only me, or we say, hey, it's not only me, it's us. Actually, it is collective. The second is we from a very early age are drowning in messages of not being enough. Right? So this notion of, why would you be hopeless? Are the external world conditions Worse, so much worse than before? Yeah, maybe, but not that much. But I'll tell you what is a lot more. 25 years ago, you didn't have constantly CNN playing the latest disaster, the latest shooting, the latest ecological problem, the latest political
Yes.
issue, the latest whatever, 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 constantly on, right?
Yes.
So when you constantly are in the barrage of all the negativity, how much positive news do you notice in the news? None.
Uh, yeah, like 30 seconds at the end of the show.
Right? So that negativity bias of ours is again in our brain getting hardwired. And that's why we feel hopeless because we don't see all the good. But I always say,
Mm,
in the heart of every crisis, in the heart of every crisis, of every human failing, of every human suffering, you also have so many other hands that are helping. Like, think about all the doctors, the humanitarians who are at the heart of the current conflict between, in Gaza being played out in Israel and Palestine, right? At the heart of it, there are also stories of healing and help and courage and support from both sides.
on both
But
sides. Yeah.
but we don't hear them. We only hear about another bomb, another hospital raised. Here's what's going on because that's what sells.
Yeah.
So I think again that loss of hopelessness is in our minds, and it's up to us to start to notice the good in the world. There is good if we see it. If we choose to see it,
Absolutely.
there is good in the world. And so yeah, I think when we look at all of that, and we by the way also look at ignore the messages of not enough and you can do this to be happy, you can eat this to be happy versus choose happiness, it is absolutely in our minds, and we have more to be hopeful for. And frankly, if we are hopeful, that is critical towards mobilizing for action because with hopelessness, it's really easy to fall into inaction.
I mean, you're not going anywhere, right? If you let hopelessness just wash over you,
Yeah.
how do you get out of bed?
Yeah. So I think that is at the heart. And we really do need, and that's why, one of my biggest idols, somebody I deeply admire is Jane Goodall and the work she
Mm,
started with Roots and Shoots with children. For those who are not familiar, please check out that work and please contribute in any way you can. Start a Roots and Shoots chapter, give funds. Roots and Shoots was an initiative that she started when she noticed this hopelessness that was starting to come into the world, and especially with kids. Roots and Shoots is an initiative that invites kids to be agents of change. They say you matter, and it doesn't matter how small you are, you can make a positive impact. You can start a project that helps humanity, animals, and environment. You choose it, and it's a beautiful grassroots level effort. They've been going on for a while, and I love it, because when kids do that work, it doesn't matter whether the project succeeds or not. Their identity about agent
oh,
versus victim is changed forever.
forever, right? You've changed one human. One of the 8 billion is forever, and they're going to impact a lot of people around
They
us.
impact a lot of people. We go
Yeah.
from me to we because you do Roots and
Mm,
Shoots with others and in the
okay.
community. You start focusing on the positive impact that we can make and what's good, because when we focus on
Mhm.
strengths, we can build something. So again, that fear-based thing shifts, and you build this identity of it doesn't matter how young I am, where I
Yeah.
am, how much money I got, I can be that agent. So that identity shifts. So going back to the core elements of hopelessness, we can
It's
change
it,
that.
it's in the mind. And the beautiful thing, I'm here in Portland with my daughter, and as I'm looking for a place to stay, I just planting my roots here, as I
Yeah.
mentioned, and so I'm looking for a place to stay. I'm hanging out, and the grandkids are here, and children are just so amazing. And my 4-year-old granddaughter was just sitting on the couch the other day, and she was saying she started saying something, and we looked at her and just thought, at the end of it, it was so beautiful. My daughter goes, "Aren't they beautiful?
Yeah.
Like, they don't have shame. They don't know they don't have any body issues, because no one has beaten them down and talked negative. They haven't lost hope, right? Their minds haven't been unwired from the perfect structure to this
Yes.
new structure that we inundate them with as we change their wiring. Like you mentioned, the neuroplasticity, it's a real thing. So kids, like you said, this roots and shoots is great because kids don't know they can't do it. They believe they can change everything, and they're walking around going, "Oh yeah, I'm
Yeah.
changing the world."
Yeah. In fact, it brings you bring something back that I was reflecting on this, Ken. We are all that. Think about every kid. We don't need to tell kids to be present. They are
They are absolutely.
for hours, right?
Yeah.
For hours, they're in this make believe world. They're playing. They're pretending, to play with these trains and being creative and telling this and asking a lot of questions. We beat the questions out of our kids by the time we get to school.
Yes.
We give them devices so that they forget the ability to sit and play unless there is constant mental stimulation, right? We as kids are joyous, are joyful by nature. Something
Hmm.
needs to happen to make us unhappy and cry. We are hungry, we need water, we wet our diaper, I
Yeah.
fell down. Something needs to happen to make a kid unhappy. In general, they're joyful by nature. What happens? We grow up
Yeah.
and we
Right.
are chasing external things to be happy. The base state is not happiness. The base state is not joyfulness. The base state is stress, busyness, anxiety, distraction. And so to your point, I love your what you said. Like, you notice that in your granddaughter, that we can go back to that state. We can go back because we
Yes.
are that.
Th- That's how we came out, right? This is that's the actual manufacturing statistics,
Yes,
right? That's the actual engineering design.
exactly. Right. So, like, I think our spirit is whole. Our brains, because of our evolutionary wiring and
Hmm.
constant look for negativity, will go there if you feed it.
Yeah.
Will go there. So, but let's rewire back. That's a possibility for us. Growth versus fixed mindset, the amazing work of Carol Dweck.
Oh
We
God, yeah.
can choose. Our brains are neuroplastic. Let's rewire back, because let's go back to the state where we can be joyful regardless of what's happening around, because we will be more resourced to handle it.
I listen to a lot of motivational podcasts and spiritual podcasts and mindfulness stuff, and it sounds like you follow Joe Dispenza perhaps a bit. And I was listening to his podcast. Um, I'm going to forget his name real quick. Neville Goddard,
Hmm.
and he was in his must have been in his 70s when he was speaking, because it was in 1970, so he was in his late 50s or 60s, and it was in the 1970s, and he said, when I get up in the morning, do I want to get and sit down with the newspaper and have a cup of coffee and read 26 pages of crisis, demolition, death, destruction, humans hurting each other, businesses failing? He goes, the whole newspaper is. So this is 50 years ago. He's on a podcast, or he's giving a speech, but he's saying this is 50 years before CNN, before all this nonsense. It was still the primary, what we were being fed.
Yep.
You'd wake up and this is what you sit down at your breakfast table with,
Yeah.
is 4 sections of garbage for your mind.
Yeah. In fact, I still remember there's this guy Daryl that I had a chance to work. This was in 2000s, early 2000s, when I was at KPMG. And he had a beautiful story. He was a black man who had kind of literally risen from the bowels of poverty and like
Mm.
hardship and abuse, like tons of stuff, and really changed his life. And one of the things that he was excited about then in this conversation, what you just shared, brought back to me this memory. I'm going to connect back with him. He had this idea about a newspaper that he wanted to call Good News. And he said, it's really only going to focus on good news in our community.
Right.
Where are ways in which people have helped others, or good things that have
Yeah.
happened to people? A baby's been born, somebody's got a promotion, somebody got educated, the first person ever in their family to get a college degree, a lucky break, I had a disease and it got cured. He's like, why aren't there more of those stories in our world? And
He would have been looking for those as someone trying to climb and to
yeah.
get out of the madness. Yeah.
And so I think there is so much. And maybe one of the things that it brings me to is, if there isn't one created, so maybe maybe Ken, you and I can in some shape or form collaborate, and maybe
I,
we curate from people and just publish good news stories.
the good news channel, the good
Yeah,
news stories. Yeah. I, those are cute, right? And there are so many good stories. It's one reason why I still like LinkedIn. It has managed to stay relatively politically free, depending, I guess, on who you
yeah.
follow. I don't allow it in my feed. Um, it stayed away from a lot of political, say a little bit of spiritual people in there, but not overtly religious. So
Yeah.
it's got a very nice balance, and I don't see a lot of bad news in there. It's mostly good people trying to do good
Hmm.
work
Yeah.
on LinkedIn. It's a great community. I
Yeah,
really, I
I
really
love
do
it.
like that. I really do like. I find myself more and more drawn to it. I look at my Twitter feed and I just have I just want to turn it off now. It's just so negative, and maybe it's
Yeah.
who I follow, or maybe it's the design of the product is to just keep you in permanent outrage.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's kind of
Looking,
you listen.
looking, looking for confirming biases.
That's what it is, right? Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure that my biases are being validated on a regular basis.
Exactly.
Let's go for another question. Ashish, the last one was great. I mean, really prompted a fantastic
Absolutely.
articulation. I'll hold on to this one. Oh, this will be a good one. Okay, Ashish, this one's a little easier. I mean, it may not be easier to answer, but it's less words. Do you forgive easily?
Do I forgive easily? Yes, I forgive quite easily.
Hmm,
I'm not sure I forget
yeah,
easily. And I'm not sure people
fair
should
enough.
forget easily. I think forgiveness is an act as much for yourself as it for the other,
Hmm,
right? Because when we hold resentment, who said this?
yeah,
Resentment is like
I
the
s-
acid we hold that does more damage to the vessel
yeah.
in which it's held than to the other,
Somebody Buddha or somebody with like the coal, like a hot burning coal or something that you hold,
right?
hoping it burns somebody else, or take acid poison and hope it hurts the other person. Something, yeah. It's funny because it's
Exactly.
in a lot of different sacred texts.
It's in very different sacred tests. So I
Yeah,
think you do forgive. You forgive for yourself. You forgive for yourself and for
yeah,
the other, but really, it's an act for yourself, um, because you don't allow whatever has happened, even if it is something terrible, right? Like something terrible. You don't, unless you forgive, you keep allowing that instance or that person to keep hurting you over and over by reliving it.
yes,
But you don't forget, because you learn from that.
yes, yes.
So that doesn't happen again. And you take action, including the action to kind of
Mm,
stop connection with somebody else if that's what's needed. Uh,
absolutely.
but yeah, but that's what I would say to that.
Yeah, and I wrote a book, Dear God, and it's a spiritual book. And there is four parts to it, and it's the self, and focused on your past, present, future. And then, your relationship with another person, right? You start to get outside the circles go out. And the trilogy there for me was acceptance, forgiveness, and compassion.
Beautiful.
And the relate between you and another human, those are three things you need to carry forward.
Yeah,
You need to have that. You need to be accepting, and have forgiveness there, like you said, for yourself.
yeah,
And even sometimes, I can accept this person for who they are and what they did to me. I forgive them, and I have compassion for how they got there as a
yeah,
person.
exactly. Yeah, there is so much to unpack there, right?
Hmm.
Sorry, I was just texting somebody
Yeah, it's okay.
who's like waiting for me in a coffee shop. But
Yeah,
I'm on my way. We're having too much fun.
yeah, and we're at a great spot. I mean, that I got that last question in from you. Just a great conversation, Ashish.
Ken, it's been beautiful. It's truly been beautiful. I mean, I am talk about, by the way, for the folks who are listening, talk about how small of a world this is. Ken and I exchanged notes on LinkedIn. We kind of got on a podcast together, and we started talking, and we found a mutual friend who's sitting in London. Right? I mean,
It's
how
amazing, right?
small of a world this
Right.
is. So going
Oh,
back to the me versus we, dear friends, you really don't know how not alone you are, and how if we just kind of step back, we find ourselves in this beautiful dance with so many others.
oh,
We just
so
need to
true.
become aware. We are strong. We are not weak. We are strong. But that strength needs to come from recognizing the strength from within. Let's stop the constantly feeling not enough messages that we hear, focusing on all the things that are not well. We are more abundant together, right? This is an
Agree.
unbelievable world. We are strong together. I think collectively, I think we can make such a big difference. We can be human.
And we can flourish, not just at work, but everywhere. And it all starts in the mind.
Yeah, exactly.
All starts in the mind. Ashish, fantastic conversation. Hang around for 20 seconds. Real quick, I'll
Yep.
get you on the backside before I let you go. Thanks, everybody, for listening and supporting the Humanist Podcast. Really appreciate you. If you're listening to this on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, etc., please do give us a like and a share. And if you have a moment, take a moment to leave a comment. Ashish, thanks again so much. And thanks, everybody, for listening.
Thank you. So nice to be with you.
Welcome to the Humanist Podcast. I'm your host, Ken Stearns. Join us on a journey where we unravel the